our next speaker, MLA Niki Sharma, is the Deputy Caucus Chair and Parliamentary Secretary for Community Development and Nonprofits in British Columbia. She was elected MLA for Vancouver Hastings in 2020 and is the Deputy Caucus Chair for the NDP government in British Columbia. She's also a member of the Treasury Board, and she was elected previously to the board of Vancity Credit Union, where she served as vice chair and chaired the Climate Justice Working Group. She also served as chair of the Vancouver Board of Parks and Recreation. Thank you so much, Niki, for being with us tonight.
It's just so great to be here. Thank you, Yusuf, for that introduction. And Talib, congratulations on the baby. I didn't know that news, but that certainly is very great news. It's such a pleasure to be celebrating World Environment Day with all of you online. I also want to bring greetings from Mike Farnworth, who BC's Minister of Public Safety and Solicitor General, and Jen Rice, BC's Parliamentary Secretary for Emergency Preparedness. I'm coming to you from the traditional territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people, and I think every day about that and how I can integrate real reconciliation to the work I do. A special thank you to Tarek and Yusuf from a Foundation for a Path Forward. I swear I never know where you're going to be calling in from, and Yusuf, apparently you're in Toronto this time, but every time we've had meetings, I've just been so impressed about how you're able to bring people together in very unique and different ways. And today is definitely an example of that. So my hands are always up to you and the work that you're doing. In 2020, I was sworn in as the first Parliamentary Secretary for Community Development and Nonprofits. And this role is one of the first of its kind in Canada, and it shows that BC, the government really shows the importance of and understands the importance of the nonprofit sector and all the work that it's doing. And my mandate is first and foremost to be the advocate for the sector within government, so we can understand the needs of it and help to understand how we can be good partners to the nonprofit sector. That's why this meeting and this topic is just so crucial. And actually, I heard about it through one of my meetings with Tarek and Yusuf about this specific topic, and I just think it's so timely and important. I want to talk a little bit about the nonprofit sector because I like to brag about it. You are all part of that in one way or another with the different organizations that you're a part of. The BC nonprofit sector contributes $6.7 billion to the provincial economy, and that's often something that a lot of people in the sector don't acknowledge or think about because they're so busy doing the things in their community that are so important. It also employs 86,000 British Columbians, and there are approximately 29,000 nonprofits across the province. And not only do they play a huge role in our everyday life, especially when we're during times of crises, and we've certainly seen that over the climate crises that this province has faced over the last couple of years. I just want to say that I meet with nonprofits and community leaders across the province, and I get to hear the work that they're doing. And what's really struck me is the leadership that so many organizations showed during the climate crises when they were responding to the needs of the community. And I have to say, it gives me so much hope. I see some of the faces on the screen that are part of this conversation, that are part of those people that are showing up for their communities. And I just want to talk a little bit about the importance of these nonprofits in emergency community response. We talked a little bit, we have been talking about how we are now at a time where we know we're going to face more climate crises in the future. And we know that we have to be prepared for those in new ways and to try to all leverage our resources to work together to respond. We talked about the tragedies of the wildfires and what happened in Lytton and all the lives that were lost during the heat wave. And these are things that, we all as a province reeled from. And we learned a lot, I think, about what was happening in our communities and who showed up. And, there's too many for me to list of all the organizations that I know showed up during some of our crises. And I know some of them are here, like the Islamic Relief Fund. And I heard about the work that was happening in First Nations communities during the fund, Khalsa Aid, which is also here, and the amazing work they did to deliver emergency food and all those things across the province. The First Nations Emergency Management Society, which was on the front line of a lot of devastating impacts, but showed up for communities. These are all examples that are really amazing and inspiring, but also what I'm so happy about with this conversation that we're having today is the way that it's focused on what we can learn from what all the nonprofits that showed up for community, what they experienced. And this idea that I think I've been hearing from a few organizations that I've met with about how do we know when we can get involved, how we can get involved, how do we coordinate our responses and our energy and our resources? What did we learn from the impacts of all of the climate crises that we faced, so we can help make the process and the system better, and that government can work together with nonprofits and communities. And faith-based nonprofits were definitely up there in terms of how they responded to communities. I want you to know that as a province, we are looking very specifically at our emergency response with exactly those questions in mind. What did we learn? How can we figure out how we can start responding to these climate crises that are going to happen more often? So we are modernizing our Emergency Program Act that will focus on disaster risk reduction, emergency preparedness, recovery, climate adaptation. And that act, unfortunately, was introduced more than 2 decades ago, and it really hasn't kept up to the emergency management approaches that we need in today's day and age. We're looking to introduce that new legislation this fall. And there certainly will be opportunities, and I will take some of the lessons and feedback that we hear from today to think about the whole system that we have to build up in BC. I want to talk a little bit about just ongoing preparedness for this upcoming wildfire and flood season that we have, that is upon us. Emergency Management BC is hosting seasonal readiness sessions in each of the regions throughout the spring. And First Nations and local authorities in the region will be invited to attend, and we get to receive updates on environmental conditions and readiness actions. We're also providing local governments and 14 First Nations with community emergency preparedness funding to develop emergency evacuation route plans, and some projects that will help communities prepare better for the climate crisis coming up. But certainly feedback from what we're going to be talking about today is something I'm very keen to hear, particularly with my role, which is how do we as a government make sure that we're good partners with nonprofits that are out there in the communities that are doing all of the work. I want to just close my 5 minutes on something that I think is just so key to all the work that you do, and that's community resilience. And community resilience is a measure of a community to respond, to withstand, and to recover from crises. And this doesn't happen overnight. It's built up through the steady hands of many over time. And nonprofit organizations in this province serve so many community needs every day, and they help build up our resilience. So your work is quietly weaving the fabric of society in our communities, and we know we rely upon this during times of need. And I know that we'll have many challenges ahead from the impacts of climate change. And I know we're all thinking about that particularly today, but I want you to also know that you give me hope, and that all the community leaders that I meet that are working to make this better also give me hope. And you remind everybody that we're in this together, and that together we can build a society that can face these challenges, one that is compassionate, inclusive, and sustainable. I just want to thank you so much for having me here today, and I look forward to the outcomes of the discussion.